Okay, so before anything else, let me say this clearly. This video is not about black women as a group. I'm mixed race myself, Caribbean and English. I think black women are totally beautiful, stunning, full stop. So that is not the conversation. This video is specifically about why black women sometimes struggle on Love Island UK, and whether that is even still true given that we've had black finalists, a black runner-up, and in 2024 the first black couple to ever win the show. So the question of whether black women struggle on Love Island is actually more complicated than the annual social media debate suggests. Every summer the conversation starts again. A black female contestant is struggling to find a connection. Social media follows up with the same debate. Producers are blamed, the men are blamed, the format is blamed, and the contestant herself is rarely discussed honestly. But I want to look at all of it. The structural side, which has real merit, the individual side, which also has real merit, and the format itself, which I think is the argument nobody's making correctly. So first I'm going to look at the structural argument where it is valid. The structural critique is real and it has receipts. Ralph Thompson, a producer and editor on Love Island from Series 5 through to Series 10, who went on to work on the USA and the Australian versions, went on record in early June 2026 to say that the show repeatedly casts black women alongside men whose entire dating history points towards a very specific type. He connected this directly to a 50% year-on-year drop in Series 13 opening night ratings. Lack of diversity in casting was his explicit explanation. Former Islander Rachel Finney put it plainly in Grazia, quotes, "I was cast to appease people, to shut people up." She said producers are ticking boxes rather than casting black women with genuine romantic prospects. That is a legitimate critique, though it is worth noting that former contestants who speak publicly about their treatment are also inevitably maintaining a platform. That does not make them wrong, but it does mean their testimony is not neutral either. And this series is a live example. Ope, the black man, one of the original male contestants, stated in his introduction that his ideal type is a blonde Scottish woman. That is his preference and he is entirely entitled to it, of course. But the producers knew that when they cast him. They also cast Angelista, a black woman, in the same original lineup, and then appeared surprised when the connection did not materialise. This is the casting failure the structural critics are pointing to. Not that black women are unattractive, not that men are wrong for their preferences, but that the producers are making a specific, predictable, documentable choice to cast a black woman alongside men who have shown no interest in dating black women and then calling the resulting rejection organic chemistry. But compare it to Love Island USA. The American version screens more carefully for contestants who are genuinely open to diverse dating. The result is that black female contestants find connections faster, reach finals more frequently, and become fan favourites at a higher rate. It is not because American men are fundamentally different, it's because the casting process creates different conditions. So next we're going to talk about where the structural argument does not explain everything. And here is where I want to be honest, because the structural critique does not explain absolutely everything, and pretending it does is not honest. There is a set of criteria that determine whether a contestant, any background, any race, gets traction on Love Island. I call it the FAB criteria concerning fertility, agreeableness, and beauty. Fertility speaks for itself at this age group. These people are all in their early 20s, and that baseline male biological preference can be reasonably overlooked in this scenario. Beauty is self-evident on a show that is fundamentally visual, but agreeableness is the one that people underestimate. Not agreeableness in the sense of being a pushover, agreeableness in the sense of being present, engaged, open, someone who makes other people feel comfortable and drawn in, someone who puts themselves forwards rather than waiting to be found. And that criterion operates entirely independently of race. Angelista, this series is genuinely hard to assess. She's quiet, she's reserved, she's almost getting no screen time, and in the first week of Love Island, when very little of interest happens for anyone, being below the threshold of even that low bar says something. She walks away from conversations, she has no close female friendships forming, she has no male interest, and the combination of those three things produces one result. She becomes invisible. That is not a racial outcome. That is a personality on television outcome. There are white girls in this series with the same problem. And the difference is that when a white girl is quiet and average on Love Island, nobody makes a structural argument out of it. But when a black girl is quiet and average, the conversation has become about the show's racial dynamics. And sometimes that is the right conversation, but also sometimes it is a distraction from a simpler explanation. So let's look at the women who have done well. Indiyah Pollock in Series 8, never in the shadows, consistently in conversations, consistently building friendships, consistently making herself the kind of person the villa gravitated towards. She's equally gorgeous in the villa, and I'm not saying that Angelista is in any way less beautiful than the other people on there. They're more or less on a par. But as an example, Indiyah Pollock had a warmth and a presence that made her impossible to ignore. The structural conditions were not dramatically different for her. What was different was her engagement with them. There's also Mimi Ingolube, who won Series 11 in 2024, the first dark-skinned woman to win the show. Critics on the structural side note it took 11 series for that to happen, and they are right. But they also note, and this matters, that it happened in the context of a bombshell entry. Josh walked in and immediately made a beeline for Mimi. Whether that was the producer influence or genuine attraction is documented speculation, not confirmed facts. But what is confirmed, they won with 41% of the public vote. When the conditions allowed it, the public responded in enormous numbers. But here is the harder question about the current series. What was Angelista actually expecting when she walked into that villa? And was that expectation reasonable? The people in the house are strangers, every single one of them. They are all in exactly the same position, dropped into a new environment with people they have never met, apart from the two brothers, trying to form connections under the cameras, under time pressure, under public scrutiny. Nobody in that villa owes anybody else a connection. Nobody owes her an interest, and the house does not owe her anything. What it does require is effort. She walked into a majority that had different interests, different references, different energy. And the question is not whether that is fair. It might not be entirely fair. The question is what she did about it. Did she find the common ground? Did she inject herself into conversations? Did she make herself the kind of person other people gravitate towards? From what we have seen, and we should acknowledge that the edit may not be showing us everything, the answer appears to be no. She has not established close female friendships. She has not generated male interest beyond being coupled by default. She's been observed walking away from group conversations rather than inserting herself into them. That is a self-limiting pattern. And it is the same pattern that limits quiet, reserved contestants of every background on this show. She may be a wonderful person. She may have qualities the cameras have not captured. But in that environment, if you're not making yourself visible, you are making yourself irrelevant. And that is entirely within her control. So next I'm going to talk about the format is the real problem. And here is the argument I've not heard anybody else making, because it is not specifically about black women, but it disproportionately affects any contestant who needs more than 30 seconds to make an impression. The UK format is broken. The American version of Love Island 2026, which has just launched, structures its early episodes around icebreakers and genuine get-to-know-you activities. The contestants are given reasons to talk to each other. They are asked direct questions. They are put in situations where personality has to emerge. The UK version does almost none of this in the early weeks. People walk into the villa, they couple up based on looks alone, and then they sit around for days waiting for something to happen. Think about what the format rewards. It rewards whoever is loudest. It rewards whoever is most comfortable in silence. It rewards whoever has the confidence to insert themselves into conversations they were not invited into. And it punishes anybody who needs a structure to open up. Quiet people, reserved people, people whose strength is depth rather than performance. And here is the worst part of the UK format. The activities that should exist in week one, the icebreakers, the compatibility challenges, the honest conversations, are saved round about the time of Casa Amor, by which point most of the initial couples are already formed. Most of the viewers have already decided who they like, and the activities are being used as a mechanism to break relationships rather than build them. The UK format prioritises destroying what exists over building something real. And then he puts a quiet, reserved woman in a villa where the first 3 weeks offer her nothing to work with and asks us why she's not connecting. So next we're going to talk about what actually needs to change. So what needs to change? Screen male contestants for genuine openness to diverse dating. And why it matters? We're not forcing attraction. We're finding men who actually have a history of dating or being attracted to black women. The difference between casting Samraj next to Mika and casting Josh next to Mimi is the difference between a structural failure and a structural success. And the precedent, Love Island USA does this more consistently. Josh, being brought in for Mimi in 2024, is the UK show doing it correctly. Once. Also, they need to perform the early format. Icebreakers from day one, like in the US. Why it matters, every contestant benefits. Currently, quiet, reserved, or deep personalities need structured reasons to emerge. The current UK format is hostile to anyone who is not immediately performative. And the precedent, Love Island USA 2026 is doing this right now. The results in engagement, in early connections are measurable within the first week. And next, they need to stop treating diversity as a numbers exercise. And why it matters? One black woman in the original cast is tokenism if the casting around her does not create conditions for success. Diversity on a show about attraction means casting a range of attraction, not a range of appearance. And the precedent, former producer is on record, and Rachel Finney is also on record. The pattern across 13 series is documented. So what would make an actual difference? Because I'm not interested in the version of this conversation that is just a complaint with no solution attached. In conclusion, so is Love Island UK obliged to create conditions for black women to succeed? In the sense of actively engineering attraction? Of course not. You cannot force chemistry. Nobody's entitled to be chosen. But it is obliged to cast thoroughly enough that the outcome is not predictable before the first episode airs. So yeah, absolutely. And it is repeatedly failing to do that. One other point I want to note is that the bombshell mechanism here is that all of the originals, to an extent, are less interesting than the bombshells to come. There are two gorgeous black females coming to the house today, the 7th of June 2026. Let's wish them luck. But one more point. The format itself is creating conditions where a certain type of personality, quiet, reserved, strong on depth, is structurally disadvantaged regardless of their race. And that is a problem that affects everyone, but also compounds every other disadvantage for the contestants who were already struggling. The conversation is not wrong to happen, it's just usually too narrow. It focuses on individual black women and individual outcomes, when the real argument is about a casting philosophy and a format that has been broken for years. Fix those and the specific outcomes start to fix themselves. Please like and subscribe, drop your thoughts below, and let me know if you think I've got this wrong. Please like and subscribe. That is Steve, and I'm out.